All right, today we're going to be installing a Powder River Precision trigger kit into my XD Tactical 45. We're also going to be installing a shock buffer, slide buffer. So this doesn't have a lot of recoil to begin with because it is so heavy between the magwell and the Carver competition mount. So there's not a lot of felt recoil with this. This is pretty accurate, stays on target pretty well. I've already done a couple of things to it. I polished up the trigger. I've polished up the grip safety. I've added the slide assist for it because the way I operate, it's very simple. That's it. It's cocked. It's ready to go. I don't have to go grabbing it, especially with the way the sight is mounted. It's kind of difficult to grab and pull. So, at the same token, we're also making sure that it's empty, no magazine, and there's no ammo around. So, we're safe. First thing we're going to do is we're going to test the trigger pull as it is. So this is, again, except for some polishing that I've done inside, this is a completely stock trigger. So let's cock it and let's test the trigger pull on this. Okay, so that broke at about 5 3/4 pounds. Let's do it again. Making sure I'm on the middle of that trigger. Damn grip safety. Okay, that broke at about 5 3/8 of a pound. Let's try it again. Grip safety. And that broke at about 5 1/2. So we're averaging, so 5 1/2. What did we get? 5 3/4. So we're right around 5 1/2. So that's very comfortable for that gun. And disassembly is pretty straightforward. First, we have to take the Carver mount off, and then disassembly is completely normal. The only difference is that the Carver mount uses the trigger pivot pin to mount straight through. So just watch if you're using a Carver mount that you don't over tighten that. So just to aid in disassembly, I like to put that pin back in. And disassembly. Is as simple as that. Alright, so now that we have the slide off, let's begin disassembling this. So let's take the block out first. there is a spring that the takedown lever has to overcome. See if we can push that down. Push the takedown lever out. There we go. All right. Excellent. Okay. So takedown lever is out. Then we pull out the trigger pivot, which is that pin from the carver mount. And the block, there's another pin in the front. Drive that out. Okay, that's that front pin, and then the block with the trigger comes straight up and out. All right, there's your spring, goes inside there, and there's the trigger and the disconnect lever coming up, and that comes out in one assembly. And then we've got your slide lock that comes out, and the magazine release we're going to leave inside. There's no reason for us to take that out. So there are now two pins in the back here. One is the pivot for the grip safety. The other one is the pin that holds the sear, the ejector, and we're going to take that out. Drive that out. And let me use a smaller punch. Didn't even have to hammer it, came right out. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. All right. Oh, and there goes the spring. Didn't expect it to come out like that, but okay. There we go. And that just pushes out to the one side, just like that. And then out comes our sear and release the grip safety, release the Kraken. Why is that sear not coming out? All right, let's pull this pin all the way out. Come on, baby. There we go. Cool. There's our ejector. There's our sear. There is the striker safety. And like I said, the grip safety, there's no reason for that to be taken out. Okay? So, if you haven't cleaned this area of the gun up in a while, now's the time to get in there and do some maintenance. Okay, so now that that's apart, we have the Powder River Precision Ultimate Match Target Trigger Kit. Now, I've already opened the box, and I've already compared some of the components. Some of the components look different, but they should function the same way. So, obviously, we have, and I'm going to put the parts separately, we've got the match trigger, which is plastic, which I really don't like. I really like metal parts. This polymer frame is very tough, but again, to an old school guy like me, it is plastic. We'll see how it works. You have the striker safety lever. You have the new sear. And we've got the two springs. We've got the sear spring, which will go there, and we've got the trigger spring, which we'll put over there. Now, in addition to the Powder River kit, I also purchased a shock bushing, which is going to go inside the receiver, and it'll bush the slide a little bit. I just want to see how it works. The recoil, like I said, on this gun does not bother me in the least. It's got very good target reacquisition, and I was just curious. So we'll see what happens with that. First is going to be the ejector. So that's going to go in like that. And we're just going to, again, start those pins. I don't want to put them all the way through. Okay, so there's the ejector. Then the sear goes in with the sear spring. And I'm going to use this punch as a guide. Okay, let's get that through there, and let's get that continued across. All right. Okay, so the sear spring will go in. Push that pin a little farther. Oh, maybe too far. Just a little bit back. Okay. And push that. Now this smaller pin, eventually we're going to push down that spring. So for now, let's leave that just like that. Let's push that sear over. Let's move everything over because we have to make sure we have enough clearance here. So if there's not enough clearance here, we're going to have to take a little bit of sandpaper to the sear. But like I said, I like fitting everything first to make sure everything fits. And I don't believe it's going to. Okay, so herein is our problem. Just out of curiosity, let me fit the old one. Okay, so the new one is going to have to get shaved off a little bit. So let's take that back out. Take out the spring and take out the sear. All right, so let's compare the new sear and the old sear. All right, so let's zero our dial indicator. Okay. So where the pin goes through, we're looking at 0.304. 0.304. So again, where the pin goes through, we have 0.313. So we've got quite a bit. We've got almost 10,000ths of an inch of difference. Then the base of the sear is 0.362 on the old one, and the base of the new sear is actually thinner. It's 0.35, 0.349. Okay, so we're not going to have to take anything off the base. The problem is going to be right here on this round pad. That is where we're going to be removing the material from. Okay, so we're going to remove about 10,000ths of an inch, and we're going to be very careful to watch that. So just out of curiosity, the striker safety lever is 0.061, and this one is 0.063. Okay, so these two are very close. I'm not touching these. So it's just going to be this point of material right here is where we're going to take the material. We're going to take some material off of. So using a piece, I just have a piece of 300, I think it's 360 grit emery cloth. I want to make sure I don't remove anything from here. So let's move this into a little bit better position so you can see. And I am just going to take a little off of this. Okay, almost the coating is almost off it. And I don't know if this is just a coating or a bead blasting. We're kind of polishing it, but even polishing removes material. So let's see where we got. We've already removed 2,000, so we're down to 11. And we want to get down to 301, 302. I'll say we go 305, and then we'll test fit. And then we just keep going. Okay, this took way longer than I expected, so obviously I stopped the video. So we got this down. I got this down to 0.306, and I've test fitted it a couple of times, taken a little more off. So as right now, 0.306 works. So what we're going to do now, see, that's 301, so 306, that's 0.005 of an inch wider, which is good. That just means that this had a little bit of play in it. So what we're going to do is we want to test fit according to the instructions, and we want to make sure that the trigger is resetting properly. So let's temporarily put some of these parts back together, and let's do a test fit. Okay, so let's get the proper sear spring and put that off to the side. So these two, the sear and the disconnector lever, have to go together. So we're going to put that in. Let's start the pin from the opposite side, like that. And then we're going to put, just a note, when you're putting the XDs together, this safety lever has to contact this little tab on the inside, okay? And they move kind of like this. They move independently of each other. This tab goes underneath a ledge inside the frame. So let's put that in. They have to go in. Like I said, the easiest way is to put them in together. We'll see if my hands work tonight. So they have to go, that little tab has to go underneath the ledge. And, oh, well, that didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook the lever over the pin like that. And then I'm going to put the sear in, I got to get it in there correctly, like this, and put that in there, and then start pressing the grip safety and the pin. So the grip safety is pressed down, and the pin, we're starting to feed the pin through. Okay, so I think I just cocked it. There we go. Okay, so that's the way the grip safety is supposed to contact the sear. So that's that. So let's retract this a little bit because we want to put the spring on. Okay, so let's get the sear spring into place. And the sear spring goes like Pac-Man facing the front of the pistol. So we're going to put that on and then keep pressing the tab across. And when that's riding in there, then we're going to take the ejector assembly. The ejector assembly, again, points towards the front of the pistol. So we're going to put that in. And that's going to be a little bit of a tight fit, but it's enough that it's going to move. And I'm going to press the spring pin in a little bit, just to keep that together. Get a little bit of a thicker punch just to start to push that through. Oops, it's starting to come out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the pin, the sear spring pin went through. So let's push the rest of this. Should push pretty easily through the rest of the pistol, all the way through. Okay, it should have some resistance, but it shouldn't go sliding through there. Okay, whoops, too far. Back a little bit. Okay, good. Now, next step, now that these are in, and they should be moving freely, there you go, they move. Okay, the next step, and it's okay to have some resistance on there. Like I said, this is a match fit. So with a little lubrication and the clearances, it should be fine. So let's put the spring onto the pin. Now this pin doesn't go all the way through on this pistol. It doesn't go all the way through the frame. Whoops, I pushed it in too far, and now I need a little bit of help from a screwdriver just to push it back. So you're going to push that pin about halfway in, okay, and then you're going to hook this spring up and around. So I get a wide punch for that, and let's see if I could do this in one shot. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. Okay, and that's where that spring fits on the pin. Then you're going to get a wide punch, and just push that in until it doesn't go in anymore, until it's flush with the receiver. Okay, so now that we have the sear in place, you check it for movement, and it's got some good movement. You check the safety bar, make sure that's moving with the sear. That's the way it should move. If it's not moving or binding, you don't have it together correctly. Okay, so now let's temporarily put the trigger, and notice I haven't taken the spring and the bar and everything off it. So let's put the stock trigger back in it. Okay, that fits flush with the side of the frame and goes underneath to the back. You have your bar, your block rather. You see it's got this little hook on it. That hook goes behind the trigger and takes a little bit of manipulation, but it goes, trigger goes behind it and down into it. And you'll know you'll have it correct because you'll see the bore for the takedown pin and the front spring pin are lined up. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to take the pivot pin, or in this case, this is the mount for the mounting screw for my Carver competition mount, and let's get the trigger lined up so that we have trigger pull. Okay, so now we have basic trigger pull, and you can see now we have sear function. All right, let's make sure that the trigger resets. So without putting the spring in, I'm going to put my disconnect, my takedown lever back in. Let's put the slide back on. And this, again, the way I'm doing it is a little raunchy because I didn't put the slide lock back in it. So you have to do what you want to do, however way is easier for you. But as long as this is down, the slide's not going to come off. Let's test the trigger. Good, and the trigger resets. Now let's watch the trigger to see if it moves. Trigger should not move during the slide. I know it moved just a little bit, but that's the pin. And then click. Okay, let's try it again. Slide retracts, slide moves back. Okay, so we have good reset on the trigger. The problem that we have is the grip safety. So the grip safety is not working because on this handgun, if I don't press the grip safety, I should not be able to rack the slide. And I can. Plus, I shouldn't be able to push the trigger without the grip safety. So we're going to have to take a little bit off from another area, and I'm going to show you that. Let's take the slide back off. And let's take this back apart. So off comes the takedown lever. Out comes the pin for the pivot for the trigger. Out comes the block. And out comes the trigger. All right, so you see we're trying to get this straightened out back here before we start doing any other work. So if we look at the sear, okay, and we depress the sear slightly, you can see, I believe, I had it doing it before. Well, this is not retracting out. So there is a surface, that little nub that's on the inside of that. Okay, so according to the manufacturer's instructions, in order to make the sear, the back of the sear, functional with the grip safety, we have to take a little bit off this sharp portion right here. And we're going to do this with just a file and a little bit more sandpaper. All right, so we got the sandpaper, and we're going to start taking some of that off. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hit this with a file first. Let's see what we got going on here. And we've got from the top, we've got 316 and 316. Okay, so 316. So let's see how much we're going to have to remove off of that. Start with about 5 thousandths. What's that? 310. 310. All right. Let's test fit this again and see if safety works. So we don't need the spring and all that happy crap in there. We just need the pin. Okay. That looks like it. This looks like it did the trick. Let's put it all together. So you see, when it's back, then you press the grip safety, and she's able to release. All right. When you don't press it, she can't release. So let's put that all together. So good. So it only took about 5 thousandths. So now we can put all this back together. Hook on our ejector. Okay. And we've got that whole thing in there. All right, let's put this on the other side. See, today is one of those days when my fingers don't want to work too well. Okay. Takes a lot of finagling. But by the time you're done, I guarantee you'll be an expert at putting this thing together and taking it apart. Okay. So let's push that lever in a little bit. Just punch. Okay. Let's get that down and around. Come on, baby, get in there. Okay. And all right. So that's that. So again, I'm going to do another test fit, and I'm going to drop the trigger back in there again, because this is what it does, and it takes time to get these things right when you're doing work like this. And if you don't have the time to take to get it right, then you really shouldn't be doing this, and you should take it to someone to have this done. Okay. All right, she cycles with the grip safety pressed and doesn't cycle without that grip safety. Okay, let's see about the trigger. Doesn't work, works, reset, doesn't cycle without the grip safety. That's exactly what we want. Okay. Good reset on the trigger. That's proper function. This I don't like. Okay, so I'm just going to clean it up with a piece of sandpaper, and then that should solve our reset issue. And again, we'll assemble it and test. All right, so without going through a whole big rigmarole, I just removed just a hair more from that same spot, and now she's working exactly how she's supposed to. Okay, and this resets with no issues. And everything is working. Okay, so next step is we're going to move on to the trigger. Okay, so old trigger, spring, new trigger, spring. All right, so this is deliberately machined over so we can manually fit what's called the over travel. So over travel is, if you look at the two triggers independently, this surface here is going to prevent over travel. So as you pull the trigger back, or you squeeze the trigger back, there's going to be a release point, a break point. But then there's going to be room between this surface and the trigger. And that's what we call over travel, that distance. So it's a squeeze. So after the break, you're squeezing, but you're not using that movement for anything. So that's why we're going to adjust this. And the only way to adjust it is to put it together and take it apart. Put it together and take it apart. Put it together and take it apart. So let's get this on here. We're going to put spring. Again, my hands are not working the best today, so we're going to do it like that. Come on, we begin in there, and then that goes, hooks under, the spring hooks under the lever, and that's what you get. Okay, so let's put this lever in the pistol. Let's put that in. Gotta get that in the right spot. Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we're going to adjust the sear engagement to release. Okay, so you see that action right there? And I'm looking at the sear up top. Okay, so that's the way the sear releases. So for right now, let's put the slide on and let's see what she does. I'm not confident that that's correct just yet, but we're going to see. Nope, it does not release. And to get the slide off when the trigger won't release, if you look into the back of the slide underneath the striker plate, there is a tiny slot where you can get a hook or a pin into to release that sear. Just press it down. Gotta have the grip safety pressed. There we go. And now the slide comes off. So just a good tidbit to know. You can stick a small punch or a blade through there to just grab that sear and just give it a little boop. Okay? Just in case you can't get the slide off. So we have to take the trigger out. And we're going to measure this surface. Okay? We're going to measure this surface right here. And we're going to start taking material off this surface. Now, it is plastic, so you have to remember the material is going to come off quick. Okay? So let's get some sandpaper and let's start doing that. And for this, because it's plastic, I'm going to use a strip of 200, or what is this, 236, something like that. All right, and because this is the way we roll. How did that move? Thank you. All right, let's see what we got going on here. So with the trigger safety depressed, we have 450, 455, depending on how you put it in there. Let's do this one more time. 455, 450. So let's take it down to 440. That sounds like a good number. 10 thousandths. Take 10 thousandths off, and then we'll test fit it again. All right, again, something that took longer than I expected. So she now fires. Perfect release. Okay, so what we're going to do is the last thing is we're going to install our shock buffer, and then we're going to put it all back together and find out what improvements we made in the trigger. I can tell just from the seat of my pants that this is really crisp, a lot more than the original stock trigger. So let's take this apart real quick. And let's finish reassembly of the receiver the proper way. This spring is going to go into the block, but this spring works your takedown and your slide lock. So the slide lock will go in first, and that pivots on the trigger pin, and then this block holding the spring can go in just like that. And then let's put the trigger pin in just to secure everything. All right, goes through, goes through, goes through. Perfect. And of course I missed the lock release. There we go. Okay, check the lock release, make sure the lock release is in there and it's spring loaded. We can now put our front pin in to locate that whole assembly. And that's going to go until it clicks. So you're going to hear a click once that goes all the way through. Maybe it did click already and I missed it. Well, anyway, that should click. Yeah, I missed the click. Okay, your takedown, there's a little notch. You put the notch in so that it contacts the spring on the inside of the bore, and then you just twist it to release. Twist, and in she goes. Done. See that? Good. So, we're all in there. That's done, that's done. That's all lined up in the back. Shock buffer. So the shock buffer fits in that little well in the front. Just like that. And that's exactly what it looks like. So if the slide gets hung up a little bit, we're going to do a little trimming. But that is all together. Let's put the slide back on and see where we're at. So now the slide doesn't want to come all the way back. See that? That's what I was afraid of with that shock buffer. Okay. So that shock buffer is supposed to come back to hit this in here. So this shock buffer is probably too thick for this gun. And I would rather not use it at all than try to fit it in there. Okay. But so far, everything is working the way it's supposed to. Test the safety. Test the safety again. Locks, unlocks. Everything looks good. So I'm going to play with this buffer, and maybe I'll make another video about that buffer, but as of right now, that buffer is not going to be able to go in there. It's just, it's not letting the slide come all the way back. Okay, it's stopping the slide like up here, which is not good. So let's look at our trigger improvement. Let's see how much of an improvement we got with our trigger. See if I can do this. There we go. Out in the middle of the trigger. So we've got it down to 4 pounds. Try it again. We got it down to 3 3/4. I told you this was a good improvement. And that broke at 4. So we're looking 3 3/4 to 4 pounds. So we're looking at a 1.5 pound improvement almost in the trigger pull. Plus, it is very, very crisp. I could feel the take up is right there. And then a solid break. with no over travel. Okay, a little bit of a take up, squeeze until it cracks, no over travel. I love that. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to put the carver mount back on, but that completes the Powder River Precision Trigger Kit.